Jolly Clifford meticulously organised her files while watching the light rain through the office window. The perfectly tailored grey suit and high-heeled shoes were her daily armour as a tax attorney, a profession she inherited from her father more out of admiration than passion. "Have you reviewed the Neville Importations contract?" Edward asked, without looking up from his laptop. "I left it on your desk last night," Jolly replied, accustomed to her husband's absent-mindedness when he was focused. Edward Clifford had been her colleague in law school. Both were brilliant but in different ways. He was assertive, straightforward, sometimes arrogant. She was methodical, empathetic, able to find solutions where others saw only problems. It was this complementarity that united them, first professionally at her father's law firm, and later romantically. Their marriage, like their careers, seemed to be planned with precision. After 5 years working at Jolly's father's firm, they decided to start their own business. Clifford & Clifford Law Firm grew rapidly, attracting important clients and other talented lawyers to the team. On the surface, everything seemed perfect. But on nights and weekends, when she traded her suit for an apron, Jolly felt a different kind of joy. One that didn't come from winning cases or closing deals, but from creating something with her own hands. "This cake is divine, Ju," exclaimed Sophie, her best friend, during her 40th birthday. "You should sell this." Jolly smiled, watching the guests indulge in her pistachio cake with mascarpone cream frosting. It was a recipe she had perfected over the years experimenting in the kitchens of life. "It's just a hobby," she replied, but her heart raced at the possibility. That night, after everyone had left, Jolly gathered the courage to share an old dream with Edward. "I've been thinking. The office is stable, we have an excellent team. Maybe I could reduce my hours to take a professional pastry course." Edward, who was arranging the glasses in the dishwasher, stopped what he was doing and looked at her with an expression that mixed confusion and amusement. "Confectionery? You want to give up law to make cakes?" He laughed, but it wasn't a warm laugh. "We've built a reputation, Jolly. We are respected in the market, and you want to trade it for flour and sugar?" "I'm not talking about giving up everything," she explained, suddenly feeling small. "I just want to explore something that gives me pleasure." "Pleasure?" Edward shook his head. "Life is not about pleasure, it's about building something solid, something respectable." That conversation was just the first of many. As Jolly's dream grew, Edward's understanding diminished. Even so, after months of persistence, she finally enrolled in a renowned pastry course. The world of professional pastry was demanding, very different from making cakes at home for friends. There were precise techniques, specific terminologies, sophisticated equipment. But for the first time in years, Jolly felt genuinely enthusiastic about learning something new. Claire, her teacher and the owner of a traditional pastry shop in the city centre, quickly noticed Jolly's talent. "You have fairy hands," Claire said one day, after Jolly presented a perfectly layered entremet. "And more importantly, you have passion. That cannot be taught." When Claire offered Jolly an internship at her bakery, it was as if a universe of possibilities had opened up. She reduced her time at the law firm, delegating more responsibilities to her team, and began to divide her time between the two worlds. The transition was not smooth. The glamour of high heels and executive meetings gave way to flour-stained aprons and early mornings, preparing doughs that needed to rest. The compliments from satisfied clients of her legal services were replaced by the silent smiles of customers savouring her creations. At home, the environment grew increasingly tense. Edward watched with growing irritation as his wife changed. What started as small jabs evolved into direct criticism. "You come home smelling like butter and sugar," he complained one night. "Is this what you want from life? To be a simple baker?" "Pastry chef," Julie corrected, trying to stay calm. "And yes, it makes me happy." "Happy?" Edward laughed bitterly. "Years building a successful career just to throw it all away and bury yourself in a kitchen? Only a woman would make such a stupid decision." His words hit her like a punch. It wasn't the first time Edward had made sexist comments, but never so directly, so cruelly. Edward, the office remains solid and thriving. I've always been competent in my profession. Now I'm following my dream. It's no use trying to escape. A woman always returns to the kitchen, he mocked. That phrase echoed in Julie's head for days. It wasn't just the insult that hurt, but the revelation of what Edward really thought about her, about women in general. How had she not noticed this side of him before? In the months that followed, the marriage quickly fell apart. Conversations turned into arguments, and respect gave way to resentment. Edward seemed incapable of accepting his wife's choices, seeing them as some sort of betrayal of what they had built together. "You're wasting your potential, Julie," he insisted. "All that studying, those years of dedication." "I am using my potential in a different way," she replied. "Why does that bother you so much?" The truth was that Edward felt threatened, not only by the career change itself, but also by the independence and confidence that Julie demonstrated at every step. He had always been accustomed to calling the shots, planning the couple's future as if it were his own project. When Julie started to carve her own path, one he had not mapped out or approved, it deeply shook his sense of control. The arguments became more frequent and harsher. Edward couldn't deal with the idea that Julie had found satisfaction outside the boundaries he had set for her. He criticized her choices, belittled her achievements, and even when they weren't arguing, the silence between them was heavy, like a constant reminder of the chasm forming. The separation was inevitable. There were tears, bitter accusations, and sincere, yet failed, attempts at reconciliation. In the end, it was clear that this marriage could not continue. Julie needed the freedom to be who she was, and Edward could not, or would not, offer that to her. "I want to buy your share in the office," Edward proposed during the divorce negotiations. "You can waste the money on whatever you intend to do." His condescending tone still hurt, but Julie no longer cared as much. She had other plans. With the money from selling her share in the office, Julie approached Claire with a proposal. "I'm thinking of buying the bakery," she said, nervous but determined. "You mentioned you were considering retiring." Claire smiled, a mixture of surprise and approval on her face. "Are you sure? Running your own business is not easy." "I have management experience," Julie replied, "and what I lack in specific knowledge, I make up for with passion and a willingness to learn." The transaction was completed in a few weeks. Sweet Julie was born from the ashes of a failed marriage and the dreams of a woman determined to rebuild her life on her own terms. The first few months were challenging. Julie had to learn about suppliers, inventory management, employee schedules, all while still perfecting her skills as a pastry chef. There were nights when she returned to her new apartment exhausted, with sore feet and back, questioning her decision. But then slowly things started to change. Her pistachio cake, now called Green Dream, became a hit with the customers. A local influencer posted about it, and suddenly there were lines at the bakery's door. Julie hired more staff, expanded the menu and renovated the display and the salon. Her experience as a tax attorney proved surprisingly useful for the business's financial management. She understood contracts, taxes, regulations, knowledge that many other small business owners did not have. 1 year after acquiring the bakery, Julie opened her first branch in a city shopping mall. The following year, 2 more stores. Her name and brand became synonymous with quality and innovation in the world of pastry. At 37 years old, Julie was running a network of 6 patisseries, employing more than 50 people, and had been featured in magazines specializing in gastronomy and entrepreneurship. One autumn afternoon, while overseeing the installation of new equipment in her main store, Julie received an unexpected visit. "Hi, Ju," said Edward, standing in the kitchen doorway with a bouquet of lilies, her favourite flowers, something he had never forgotten. Julie froze, spatula in hand, too surprised to react immediately. "Edward, what are you doing here?" He looked different, older perhaps, or simply more tired. The impeccable suit was still the same, but there was something in his eyes, a vulnerability she had never seen before. I came to congratulate you, he said, extending the bouquet, and to apologize. Julie accepted the flowers hesitantly, gesturing for him to follow her to her office, a small but elegant space at the back of the bakery. Congratulate for what exactly? She asked after closing the door. For all of this, Edward gestured vaguely. I saw your interview in that business magazine. You built an empire, Julie. She placed the flowers on the table, crossed her arms. An empire of flour and sugar, she replied, quoting his words from years ago. Edward had the decency to look ashamed. I was a fool, he admitted. Arrogant, prejudiced. I didn't support you when I should have. I didn't believe in you. Silence hung between them for a few seconds. Why are you here now, Edward? After so much time? He sighed, running his hand through the hair that was slightly greying at the temples. The office isn't the same without you, he confessed. We've grown, yes, but something's been lost. Maybe it was your touch, your sensitivity with the clients. He paused. Or maybe I'm only now realizing how important you were, not just as a lawyer, but as a partner. Julie felt a pang of something, not exactly longing, perhaps nostalgia for a time that seemed very distant now. I thought that maybe... Edward hesitated, searching for the right words. Maybe we could not resume everything at once, but have dinner, talk a little. He paused, averted his gaze for a second, then looked back at her. And I also thought I could help you here with the management of the business. I know you have everything under control, but maybe I can add something to it somehow. Julie looked out the window of her office, into the kitchen where her team worked in harmony, preparing the delights that had become her signature. She thought about her life now, the mornings waking up eager to create a new recipe, the messages from clients thanking her for the cake that made their event special, the freedom to make her own decisions. Edward, she began softly, I forgive you, truly. I hold good memories of our years together, and I am thankful for everything I learned by your side. He smiled, hopeful. But, she continued, our lives have taken different paths. I have found my place. I am happy now, truly happy. His smile faltered, but did not disappear completely. I understand, he said after a moment. You have built something incredible here, Julie. Something of your own. Thank you for acknowledging that, she replied sincerely. Edward stood up to leave, but stopped at the door. That pistachio cake, is it still as good as I remember? Julie smiled, a genuine smile this time. Better, she replied. I've learned some new tricks. She took a small box from the shelf and handed it to him. A slice of the green dream. On the house. After Edward left, Julie remained seated for a few minutes, reflecting. There was no bitterness in her heart, only gratitude for the path she had taken. If Edward had not been so resistant to her ambitions, she might never have found the courage to follow her true calling. Julie returned to the kitchen, where the aroma of vanilla and butter filled the air. She picked up her favourite spatula and began working on a new creation, a cake inspired by new beginnings, second chances, and finding one's own voice. Because deep down, her story wasn't about cakes or contracts, about success or failure. It was about a woman who learned that in anything she did, whether arguing in court or decorating a wedding cake, the most important thing was to do it with dedication, with care, giving her best. In the end, Julie understood that Edward's lack of support and trust undermined the foundations of their marriage. He couldn't see that what made her thrive as a lawyer wasn't the title or the prestige, but the dedicated and careful way she faced every challenge. When she traded the suit for an apron, her behaviour didn't change. The same dedication and care that made her successful in law were what made her a respected baker. And it was then that Julie realised a simple but powerful life lesson. It doesn't matter what you choose to do, what makes all the difference is how you do it. Everything we put into the world, whether it's a well-drafted contract or a pistachio cake, deserves our best, because only then do we find the true meaning of success and happiness. If you enjoyed the story, please leave a comment with a rating from 1 to 5 to show how much you liked it. Also, watch the video that is now appearing on your screen. See you soon.